Mr. Whitehead?
Yes, sir.
Are we ready to roll, you think?
Jeffrey, do we have a quorum?
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Good afternoon. The Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is hereby called to order for its regularly scheduled meeting of February 24th, 2021. My name is Tim Rainey. I'm chairman of the board. Mr. Josh Whitehead serves as secretary of the board. Mr. Whitehead, may I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Baker?
Yes, here.
Mr. Claybrook?
Here.
Ms. Doss?
Present.
Mr. Jackson?
Here.
Mr. Malazri?
Here.
Vice Chair Savage Jones?
Present.
Ms. Scurlock? And Mr. Chairman?
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you, sir. The Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is the oldest appointed governmental body in Memphis and Shelby County. We were established in 1925. The board hears appeals from the administration of the zoning ordinance, requests for variances from the zoning ordinance, and other requests as articulated by local zoning laws adopted pursuant to the enabling legislation. The 8 members of the board are appointed, 4 by the mayor of Memphis and 4 by the mayor of Shelby County, with confirmation by the Memphis City Council or Shelby County Board of Commissioners. We serve without remuneration. At this time, I'd like to swear in the staff. I'm assuming you're raising your hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, thank you. May I get a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting?
So moved. Mary Baker.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. Is there a second?
Vice Chair,
And I heard
second.
a second. Perfect. Thank you, Vice Chair. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving last month's meeting's minutes signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Mr. Secretary, please provide us the Secretary's report, if there is one this month, and then explain the procedure for today's meeting.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. And I would like to note Ms. Scurlock is with us. Correct?
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yes, correct.
Awesome. Mr. Chairman, I don't have a secretary's report, so I'll go straight to the procedure. I'll introduce each case as listed on the agenda. Copies of the agenda are on both our YouTube page, which you can access from by going to youtube.com/C as in channel /Division of Planning and Development, or by going to the Board of Adjustment's homepage. That's Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment. You can do a search engine for that and go to most recent agenda. For each case, the staff with the Division of Planning and Development will give a presentation containing site plans, photographs, and maps. Those will be able to be viewed on our YouTube streaming channel as we go through them. At the conclusion of that presentation, the applicant will present his or her case. After the applicant's presentation, we will first hear from those in support of the application, followed by those in opposition of the application. Pursuant to our rules of procedure, each side, applicant/supporters, and then opposition, will get 10 minutes each. After we go through those 10-minute time periods, which do not include Q&A between members of the board and the people testifying, the applicant will get a 2-minute rebuttal period. At the conclusion of that public hearing, where we hear from members of the public, the body will close the deliberations by making a motion and a second, and then deliberate and then vote. If during that time the board would like to hear additional testimony, a 2/3 vote is required, and then we will hear from both sides at that point, and then reclose the public hearing and then repeat. All motions made by the board will be done in the affirmative. The private acts governing the board require the affirmative votes of at least 5 members to approve an application, so that is a 5/8 fraction for this afternoon, since all 8 members are present. The board may also vote to hold a case not to exceed 1 month with the consent of the applicant, without the consent, of the applicant, and 3 months with the consent of the applicant. All section numbers we refer to this afternoon come from the Memphis and Shelby County Unified Development Code, which was adopted by the City Council and the County Commission in 2010 and made effective on January 1, 2011. I'll introduce the entire UDC, the code, to make it part of today's record, thus dispensing with the reading of individual sections. This body is vested with the power to act on these cases before it under the provisions of Chapter 9.22 of the Code. Mr. Chairman, I submit that all cases have been filed in proper order, all applicants have been notified of this hearing, and all other notice requirements have been fulfilled pursuant to the Code.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. At this point, the board will establish a consent agenda. To establish the consent agenda, the Secretary will call out each eligible case. If any member of staff or board member objects to the case being placed on the consent agenda, he or she should speak up when the Secretary reads that case. Once the consent agenda is established, the board will vote on all cases placed on the consent agenda as a whole and will not hold individual public hearings on each case. Mr. Secretary, which items on our agenda are eligible to be placed on consent today?
Mr. Chairman, the first one is agenda item number 2, which is docket BOA 21-0002. You'll notice starting this month we'll have 4 digits, not because we anticipate 1,000 cases, but because the Acela online permitting program gives us 4 digits. 21-0002 is located at 6181 Old Millington. The applicant is Lachelle Melton, represented by Cindy Reeves. The use district is the R6 single-family district, and the request is a use variance from Section 252 and another variance from 314A to allow a mobile home on a lot with a pre-existing home. Number 3, this would be a consent as a 1-month hold pursuant to a request by the applicant. Number 3 is docket BOA 21-0003, located at 3520 Walker. The applicant is Jita Brister Corporation, represented by Neil Patel. The use district is the CMU2 commercial district within the University District Overlay, and the request is a variance from paragraph 8310B2 to permit a trash collection service area in front of the principal structure, an apartment building. And number 4, in addition, is a request for a hold based upon no site plan. Number 4 is docket BOA 21-0006, located at 3896 Lamar. The applicant is Mohamedali Janul. The use district is the CMU Commercial Mixed Use District with an approved variance from 1971, and the request is a variance from subsection 4915E to allow the digitization of a non-conforming sign. Number 8. That's docket BOA 21-0011, located at 244 Tillman, formerly known as 2998 Tillman Cove, and 3057 McAdoo. The applicant is Tillman Redevelopment Limited Partnership, represented by Henry Miner and John Shepard. The use districts are the R6 single family and the RU3 multifamily districts, with the requests being a variance from 252 to allow ground floor commercial space with upper story residential in the RU3 portion of the site, and variances from 271B and 271G to allow garage and maintenance building and a private emergency drive access in the R6 district. And finally, number 9, which is docket BOA 21-0012, located at 700 North Front, applicant being Wolf River Harbor Holdings, LLC, represented by Mike Fay. The use district is the moderate density residential district within the Uptown Special Purpose District, and the request is a change in non-conforming use permit to allow the existing warehouse building's conversion to a parking lot and self-storage for the general public, as well as the office and apartment users across Front Street. So, in summary, Mr. Chairman, 2 approval, 3 hold, 4 hold, 8 approval, 9 approval.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Is there someone on the board that would give us a motion to approve the consent agenda as established by the Secretary?
Mr. Chairman, prior to that, please, sir, John Jackson.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to recuse myself from the vote for docket number 8, BOA 210011. I'd like to recuse myself from that particular vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is there now a motion to be made on the consent agenda?
Vice Chair, so moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, several seconds. We'll take them all. With that, I want to remind the board that by voting on the consent agenda, he or she affirms that he or she has read the staff report and is in full agreement with the conditions. Mr. Secretary, may I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook,
Yes.
Ms. Doss,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Malazri,
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Downs.
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDC of 9.22.6 are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
Ms. Scurlock,
Yes.
and Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
That's 8 ayes on everything except for number 8. And on number 8, we have 7 ayes.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. So if you have joined us on the call for agenda items 2, 3, 4, 8, and 9, you've all been either approved or held as requested. And so we thank you for joining us today. Mr. Secretary, will you call the first case on the regular agenda?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. That brings us to item 1, which is docket BOA 210001, located at 5839 Poplar. The applicant is Apple 7 Hospitality, Inc., represented by Cindy Reeves. The request being a use variance within the CMU3 commercial district to allow multifamily uses.
Okay, and I know that this was pulled by one of our members to ask a question. Do we need to, Ms. Baker, are you wanting to hear the case, or did you just have some questions for staff?
I was just looking for the appropriate time to say something.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think I may have answered my own question on this, and so I guess I have a question for the staff. Is this property governed by CMU3 zoning, or is it governed by plan development?
I'll take that. It's a planned development, although I'm not sure it needs that planned development anymore to continue operation as a hotel. It may have been zoned something different when the planned development was approved, so it's governed by the planned development with an asterisk at the end of that. Seth?
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
I saw something report later that said that the applicant had elected to develop under zoning instead of the planned development. So that may be maybe a development. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So this is Seth Thomas, Office of Planning and Development. That PD was filed for, an outline plan was approved. However, because the zoning that was already over that property at the time of the development allowed for a hotel use, they did not choose to file a final plat, and so that PD has since expired. Only the outline plan was recorded. There was never a final plat recorded on that particular property.
Well, that answers my question then. I'm good. I mean, it's governed by zoning, and you know, this is a variance to the zoning, and I'm fine with the findings of hardship and so forth.
Okay. Well, then, why don't we just move? Well, you know what? I just was looking at this. I actually need to recuse myself. I think my office may have something to do with this, but I'm not sure what. I've heard the Homewood name from my partner, so I'd just rather, I might want to pass this off to the vice chair, I guess, for the rest for any discussion and voting, if the vice chair could do that for us.
Yes, sir, I can.
Sorry
so
about
Ms.
that.
Baker, no problem. Ms. Baker, going back, so your question has been answered and explained, correct? Yes, ma'am. And that's the reason it wasn't consent, because I thought I had a question and then I thought I answered it, and the staff confirmed that it's not governed by plan development.
Okay. With that being said, is there any other questions, I guess, that the staff may have? Because otherwise we can do a vote, Mr. Secretary, or does it need to go back on consent? I guess I'm deferring to you on direction here.
Well, the consent train has left the station, but all we need now is a motion and a second, and we can go to the vote.
Okay,
Board member
well,
Jones.
let's open the floor.
I'll make the motion. This is JP.
Okay, thank you. May I get a second, please?
Second.
John Jackson, second.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second. Mr. Secretary, can we get a roll call vote, I guess?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Gerlach.
Yes.
Mr. Malazri.
Yes.
Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Ms. Doss.
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook.
Yes.
Ms. Baker.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Savage Towns.
Yes, I found that the standards of the UDCC of 9.22.6 are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
That's 7 ayes.
All right, I'm going to pass on to Mr. Chair.
All right. Ms. Vice Chair, I apologize for throwing that on you without any sort of warning. So that's my fault for doing that. I wasn't thinking about that.
No worries.
But thank you for jumping in there. Mr. Whitehead, would you call our next case that we're going to hear?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, and I don't mean to embarrass you, but I think everyone on the phone call dream of a day where we can be so successful we forget all of our clients.
Yeah. Well, the problem is it's not exactly my client, it's my partner's client, but it's still a firm client, so that's why it wasn't in the front of my mind.
That's all right. My dream is still my dream. Agenda item number 5 is docket BOA 210008, located at the southwest corner of Winchester and Ridgeway. The applicant is Star Memphis, LLC, represented by Matthew Perinello. The use districts are the CMU2 and the CMU3 commercial mixed-use districts, and the request is a use variance from Section 252 to allow single-story mini-storage.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary. And I believe this was another one that Ms. Baker maybe had a question on, so I'll defer to her for if she was wanting to hear the case or if she had just some questions.
Well, on this one, I just mainly have a comment to make, and then possibly a request for a condition to be added.
Okay, why don't you make your comment so we can hear it, and then we'll decide if we want to hear the case or not.
Okay. To me, this just seems like a big decision, to let that Sears store be mini storage warehouses, and but I realize what's happening to retail. I know that is the reason why this is happening, and it's been empty for so long and everything. But I'm just wondering if the language prior to the adoption of this code means prior to the adoption of the zoning ordinance, not just the current code known as the UDC. So I'm just throwing that out there for the staff to think about. No opposition from neighborhoods, but, they didn't get notice because of where this is and the kind of land uses that surround it. And then, finally, in the text of the staff report, the staff mentions recommendations for landscaping and street trees, and apparently this site was a featured site in the 3.0 plan, and they illustrate an excerpt from the plan in the staff report showing the street trees and the landscaping, but they don't add a condition to require it. And so at the end of all this, I'd like to add a condition: street trees and parking lot landscaping in accordance with the Unified Development Code. That's it.
Okay. Mr. Whitehead, I'll defer to you. Do you think we need to hear the case, or should we just talk about that requested condition? I guess maybe we want to hear from the applicant on that.
Yeah, I would go to the applicant.
Okay.
Rather than
Is the applicant
unless the body wants a full staff report.
If anyone, I don't want to prevent anyone from getting a full staff report on the Sears property. So if you'd like one, let me know. All right. Hearing none, is the applicant with us?
Yes, I am here.
Okay. Will you give your name and address for the record so I can swear you in?
My name is Matthew Parinello. My address is 900 Linden Avenue, Rochester, New York, 14625.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. Thank you. So I think the question posed to you right now, I mean, you can say whatever you want. You got 10 minutes, but there was talk of adding the street trees and the parking lot stuff as it was shown in the Memphis 3.0. So if you want to tell us about your project and maybe address that.
Yeah, addressing initially the landscaping, street trees, that is in general part of our plan is at the site right now, because it has been empty for, I believe it's close to 8 years now. Some of the landscaping trees are in disarray, and part of our plan is to take out any of the dead or dying trees, shrubs, bushes, and to replace them with new, fresh trees, shrubs. We are a self-storage company that probably most of our stuff is east of the Mississippi. We buy big boxes, industrial or commercial properties, and that have been empty, vacant, in distress, and we come in and give them a nice fresh look, paint, new landscaping, and provide that necessity to the community. We don't bring with us a ton of traffic. We probably average 5-6 vehicles a day at our peak. So we're not, hopefully in our eyes, providing an eyesore, but we are replacing in some communities what can be considered an eyesore or a distressed property. So we certainly will be replacing and refreshing all landscaping that needs it, and making the place, look tip-top A1 shape.
Okay. Ms. Baker, did you have any specific questions or comments on that?
Well, I mean, it sounds like that he would not be opposed if we approve a condition to be added to this variance to require street trees and parking lot landscaping in accordance with the Unified Development Code. It sounds like he's not opposed to that, so I would like to make that motion.
Okay. And when we take up the thing, we'll add that. Or maybe I'll just have you make our motion when we do it. And Mr. Pinarello, that sounds like it'd be okay. Do you have anything else you want to add today?
No, that's it.
Okay. Well, very good. And Mr. Whitehead, just to be sure, there's no opposition to this case, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So hearing that, would someone like to make a motion to approve BOA 21-0008 as conditioned by staff with the additional condition of adding landscaping in accordance with the UDC requirements?
Portia Scurlock, motion to approve.
Okay.
Vice Chair second.
Okay, very good. And is there any discussion? And Mary, does that, what I said, does that work for you, the way I said that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
That's perfect.
Mr. Chairman, this is Brett
yes, sir.
Davis, Division of Planning
Yeah.
and Development. Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, please.
My question is what the intent of the board is exactly regarding the parking area landscaping being in conformance with the UDC, because the UDC would require a substantial upgrade to the site's parking, meaning landscaping islands on both sides of every parking aisle, interior landscaping islands within the parking aisle, potentially restriping it, repatterning it, etc. So I don't know if that's what Ms. Baker is intending, but if we might be able to, if we want to require additional parking area landscaping, consider whether that's the intent or working with the existing islands is the intent.
Okay. Does that make sense, Mary? You're just wanting us to work with the islands that are there, correct?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, the
Okay.
photos, the staff report, there's just an awful lot of pavement out there with that's just pavement and nothing else. And from the photos that I looked at in the staff report, and and we'll probably not see this property again. It's not going to come before us again if this gets developed. We won't see it. The opportunity will not present itself again. And so I just feel like, mini storage is probably one of the least generators of the need for parking spaces that you could possibly find. And it kind of, to me, it just kind of sweetens the sour taste of, I noticed in the staff report, the staff writer kept saying this is the heart of the community. And it is. And so and it was specifically featured in the 3.0. So, it's got to be an important place in that neighborhood. So I think my preference would be to bring it up to code. And if other board members don't agree with that, I'm okay with it. But my preference would be to bring it up to the code at this point.
Okay. Is there any other discussion by the board?
This is Vice Chair. I do have a quick question or just point of clarity. Now, the storage place is by right. Am I correct, or part of it? I guess I'm still kind of understanding what the variance is, because I know it's split between commercial and commercial. Go ahead.
Thank you for the question. This is Brett Davis. I can take that question. If you look at page 6 of the staff report, you'll find the zoning map. I think the zoning lines on the zoning map are slightly off, but it doesn't matter too much. The site is split zoned between CMU 2 and CMU 3.
Okay.
So CMU 3 is the zoning district to the west, CMU 2 to the east, and 3 does permit the use by right. Almost all of the building is in CMU 3. There's a small portion of it at its eastern end that's in CMU 2, which permits mini storage by special use permit, not by right. And then the parking to the east of the building is CMU 2, so would not be usable by right, whereas parking to the north and south of the building are in CMU 3 and would be usable without the use variance.
Gotcha. Thank you. That's what I needed. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right. Hearing none, so just so I understand, as the condition is like this, it requires, as Mary as she was suggesting, it just to be brought up to code. So that might mean, tearing up some parking lot, putting in whatever they need to do as opposed to just existing islands. So if there's no other discussion, or I assume you guys are ready to vote?
Hey, Chairman, this is Carson.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to make sure the applicant understands, just like Brett said, what all he's agreeing to do here, not just kind of freshen up the landscape, that he's got, a good bit more work in front of him.
Okay, well, let's hear from him real quick. And, since I think we have to have a 2/3 vote to open it back up, but we're going to do instead, is there anyone that doesn't want to hear from the applicant? Okay. Mr. Applicant, are you still with us?
Hello. I got muted a little bit when you were
that's
talking.
Okay. So I'm sure you've heard what we're saying. Do you have any problem with, what the code is, and it does involve more than just replacing the trees that are in the current islands?
I guess I don't know exactly what the code would require. I'm not versed in, exactly what the code will require in terms of landscaping. And I'm assuming we're talking solely about landscaping and the requirements of the code for the landscaping on the parcel.
Correct. I believe, and I'll let staff can help a little more than this, there's probably not enough island in that much pavement, drive aisles, things like that. It could be that y'all are thinking, hey, we don't want to maintain all this pavement forever since we're all indoor. We want to do something else with it. But if you have any specific questions, you can ask staff right now.
I guess the question would be, is there an absolute necessity to add islands? Because obviously if we're adding islands and curbing and everything, those are additional costs to us. If, as you all are probably aware, the parking lot, majority of it really won't be used a ton by us. We don't need a whole lot of parking, and we don't have a whole lot of traffic. So investing a significant amount of money into adding islands, I guess the question is there an absolute need for that versus the parcel has been as is for, I don't know exactly how long, but it has been as is. If we simply freshened up and made it look pretty again, is that not good enough to satisfy everyone? And the sole reason for that is a cost to us, and that we're not going to get use out of islands, and we're not preventing people from speeding through parking lots because we don't have a whole lot of people coming through. And I guess that's my question, is it an absolute necessity that we add these items?
Okay, Mr. Davis, could you help address that?
Well, I won't speak for the board as to whether it's a necessity, but I can explain what the requirements would be in a little more detail.
Perfect, that's exactly what we need.
Well, I don't have the code in front of me exactly. I alluded to it earlier, but there would be at least one interior curbed landscaping island for every 40 spaces. That number of islands goes up as the islands shrink in size. So it could be as many as one interior island for every 20 spaces. In addition to the interior requirement, both ends, or I think at least one end of every parking aisle requires a terminal parking island. And depending on how much you really want to bring it up to the code, there are design standards for big parking areas like this that have more than 5 parking aisles, where there's sidewalks that run down the middle of the aisles, parallel parking along the sort of the drive aisles. So that goes beyond just curbed landscaping islands and into a more comprehensive look of how the UDC calls for designing very large parking areas like this today.
And Mr. Chairman, this is Josh Whitehead. Mr. Davis did an extraordinary job. He must have a pretty good photographic memory, because he basically described the graphic that's in the UDC that describes the varying different kinds of islands and required number. And that would be a pretty aggressive condition. And if the board is considering that aggressive condition, then maybe an equally aggressive but less costly condition would be remove completely that eastern parking lot. Because let's be honest, this facility is going to generate a fraction of the traffic that Sears attracted. So it might be cheaper just to blow that whole sea of asphalt on the east side out. Just something to consider.
You know, here's kind of what I'm thinking, just in my head right now, is those are both pretty big decisions. I would maybe want to offer to the applicant maybe a 1 month hold. I mean, they may be wanting to push ahead, but maybe to put something together on what they'd want to do there. So it may not be fully up to what code would do, but we can find something in the middle they can bring back and show us. That's kind of tough to figure out, I think, today, and it seems like full code with all those islands may just be prohibitively expensive. Like you said, their grass may be cheaper, but does that make sense to the applicant to possibly have a little bit of time to come up with a plan for that, to make sure we don't want you to get into something that becomes a deal breaker, you know, by what we do today?
I think my construction guys would kill me if I did that. But
well, I'm sure they'd love for you to do anything to that parking lot. They'll change anything there for you.
Yeah, the delay of a month would cost us way more significant amount of money than would, in all likelihood, having to put in islands. I mean, I can, if we pause 30 seconds, I can have my construction guy call in. He's kind of on hold, waiting in the wings in the event that we needed him.
Mr. Parinella? Maybe this is a question for both you and then eventually also for Mr. Chairman, but what we could do is move you down a couple slots on the agenda so you can kind of think about this a little bit, and so then we can table this matter for 30 minutes, just throwing a number out there. Would that help you?
Yeah, I think a 30-minute table would be good. And then I can get in touch with. Yeah, I think it would be good.
That makes sense. Let's do that. And Josh, can we just do that without objection from the board and move to the next case?
Yes, sir.
Then if there's no objection, we'll table this. Is there any objection? Hearing none. Okay, then we'll come back to this and roughly we'll check back after this next case and see.
Okay.
And so we'll move on to case number 6 real quick and give him a little time to figure this out so we can make sure we make a good decision on this.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, number 6 is docket BOA 21-0009, located at 1107 East Rains. The applicant is Dr. Errol Thomas and Jeanette Anna. The representative is Delano Smith. And the use district is the R10 single-family district within an approved variance from 1987, with the request being a use variance from 252 to allow a flexible loan plan establishment. And we're recommending rejection, so on this matter, we probably want to have a staff report.
Agreed. Mr. Skinner, could you give us a staff report on this case?
Yes. Good afternoon. Lucas Skinner here with the Division of Planning and Development. Hope you all are doing well. Here we have case BOA 21-0009. I left out the 0. My apologies on my presentation. This is a flexible loan plan establishment, as Josh said, located at 1107 East Rains in a Whitehaven neighborhood. Next slide, please. So here on the next slide, we have the zoning map. There's a ton of different zones happening here. I couldn't even blow up the image enough to probably show you. So just to explain, there's this site is zoned R10. There is Office General or OG zoning to the west. There's CMU1 to the east, R10 residential zoning to the south, and then CMU3 across East Range to the north as well, further to the east. The site was once part of a subdivision, as you can probably tell from the layout, but has turned obviously more commercial there towards East Range as East Range has grown more commercial over the years. I wanted to point out the other BOA case that was approved back in the 80s on the site approved some office uses at this building. Next slide, please. So on this next slide, we'll have the land use map. And same with the zoning, there are obviously a lot of different land uses going on. It's primarily commercial with some office uses on all sides, again, except to the south, which is residential. And let's see, let's go to the next slide, please, which will be just two site photos that I added. I added some more in the staff report that show the rest of East Range, but I just wanted to show the building primarily here. There is an existing clinic on the left side of the structure, so this request is for the right side of the structure. However, they do share the parking lot, and there is more parking to the rear behind the structure. Next slide, please. So starting to wrap this up, right before I get into my conclusions, I just wanted to point this out. I did a nearby search, as you call it, on Google Maps. Did it for any businesses that are related to the word loan. As you can see in my search, I just did the word loan near the address 1107 East Range. So this is what popped up within approximately like a 4 to 5 minute drive near the site. I will definitely note that these agencies that are listed here are probably maybe a little bit different in terms of the loans they might give out. But I just kind of wanted to show what was happening, around the site. At the Whitehaven area, as we all sort of kind of know, can be, sort of termed inundated with, different loan agencies. So I just wanted to show what was happening here on the site. So if you go to the next slide, the last slide, please. This is just getting into my conclusions. But staff found overall that this is consistent with Memphis 3.0. However, we are recommending rejection. Staff just wanted to point that we agree the site should be of commercial use. Obviously, it's not meant to be residential anymore. But just given the number of other general loan businesses around, we felt that the area had enough loan establishments. So we are recommending rejection. That's all I have, and I am available for any questions that anyone might have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Skinner. Does anyone have any questions of staff at this time?
This is Vice Chair. I do. Did they ever establish what the hardship was for this property?
Yes, I can give their explanation. I'm sure they can also tell you as well. But it was primarily the difference in zonings, not really knowing which zone they kind of were in when they were, I believe they were filing for a use occupancy permit because they thought that they were allowed to be in the zone, and then code enforcement caught that they weren't allowed to be in R10, and so they came here. Sometimes these can be done by a special use permit before the Land Use Control Board in a few of the zones, but in this one specifically, it was a variance before you guys, before the Board of Adjustment. So that was primarily the hardship, but they can also, probably explain better themselves as well.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Mary Baker. So you're saying that what is the request on this? Is it it was approved for one use variance and now they're wanting to change it to another? Is that basically what they're asking for?
Well, right. So half the building was approved back in the 80s for office uses, which gets to that small clinic that's there sort of fell under that approval. So since this is under sort of the payday loan, we have sort of a different commercial category for payday loan, flexible loan plan establishments, et cetera. So this had to fall under a new variance approval. So this request is specifically to allow the flexible loan plan establishment on the right side of the building.
And the original approval of the use variance allowed an office, right?
Yes, yeah, just like a small office use.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Skinner, can you? We've had some. It seems, but it was a while. It's been a while. We've had some payday loan cases before. What are, even when they're allowed, or is there any sort of restrictions on them on how close they can be to each other? Am I getting this business confused with something else?
As far as from my research, we didn't really have any regulations on that. If gosh, you know anything beyond my knowledge, I don't think that there really were any.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right before I started, and so this would probably be, Ms. Baker probably worked on this ordinance, although I think Tommy Pacello was the lead staff person on it. The city and the county amended the code. It was signed by Mayor Wharton in February of 2009. Mr. Davis, I have photographic memory. Portions of my brain, smaller portions probably than you. So in 2009, it became effective. It was probably a 2008 case in which we require a special use permit for all payday lenders. And only can they go through the special use permit process if they have the requisite distances from various uses, single-family residential, schools, playgrounds, etc., and from each other. So fast forward, let's just say about 5 years ago, what I noticed at the state level was that the payday lending industry lobbied the General Assembly to carve out a new use that was not called payday lender, but flexible, loan establishment. So then I amended, and the City Council and the County Commission approved, the payday lender ordinance to add this additional use. So I think given the map that Mr. Skinner just showed you, this would not be able to be processed as a special use permit, even if it were zoned in one of the requisite zoning districts, because it's too close to other establishments of the same kind, A, and B, it's too close to residential.
Okay, that's what I kind of remembered is those, and I don't have a photographic memory at all, so all right, thank you. That answers my question. Are there any other questions of staff? Hearing none, if we could make sure the applicant is where they can speak to us. Mr. Smith, are you there?
Yes.
Could you give your name and address for the record for me?
My name is Delano Smith. I live at 3831 Lakehurst Drive, Memphis, Tennessee, 38128. Ms. Santa Ana will present first, give you an introduction of family and meeting, and she will defer the remainder of her time to me, and I will refer part of my time to another person.
Okay, very good. Ms. Santa Ana, will you give your name and address for the record? And I'm going to swear both of y'all in at the same time, if that's okay.
Yeah, can you hear me? Am I already joined?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Janet Santa Ana, and I live at 9440 South River Edge Drive, Cordova, Tennessee, 38018.
Okay. Do both of y'all swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right, Ms. Santa Ana, go ahead and share with us.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, good afternoon. I'm Janet Santa Ana. Allow me to give you a background on who I am and how we came about and be in this predicament. We are immigrants from the Philippines. We have been residing here for 21 years now. My husband and I are physicians by profession prior to coming here. After coming here, we opted to venture in a business partnership with Dr. Philip Northcross. We opened a physical therapy clinic, putting to use my master's degree in hospital administration and my husband's degree in nursing. After 9 years in the business, since we were not licensed physicians, it became necessary for us to give up our ownership of the business, and we became ordinary employees. Now we are retiring, nearing retiring, and we thought of having a business of our own, something small, not requiring strenuous activity, something we can do in our twilight years to support, the government benefits. We don't have 401k, we don't have substantial savings, and we wanted something, that we can pass on to our children. One of our children graduated with a degree in accounting, and that's why we thought of the loan business. To start the venture, we had to apply, and we got a loan to use for the capital. We renovated the building complete with a bulletproof window. It cost us around $6,000, and then the softwares and equipments in addition. The application process was, it cost us a good amount of money. Considering the audited financial alone cost us $3,000, and we had to submit it twice. And it took us 2 long years to get the license approved. The biggest hurdle was the requirement of a 3-year experience in the business, and we have none. The state granted us the approval on the condition that we employed someone in the management position with more than 3 years of experience. So we have been paying this management position even prior to the license approval. We then applied for a sign permit and was asked to secure a use and occupancy permit, and that permit turned into a variance, and here we are. While Mr. Skinner's recommendation for rejection was based on the premise that the area is inundated with similar loan establishments, we believe having different, I think it's a different loan business. It doesn't harm the community, rather will benefit with better products and will increase the quality of service provided to the customers. Having competition is an incentive for businesses to be innovative and excel being supplied to the public. Competition brings about attractive competitive rates for consumers. The community will also benefit from the income tax that will be generated from our business. And although they are similar, they differ in the service they provide. The payday, the title, flexible loans. The state, the Department of Finance, granting us the license tells us we can play fair and square. They deemed us worthy of a chance to cultivate a means to generate income from from a legitimate business. We pray we are not being unjustly discriminated to protect the existing businesses, and you will allow the market to dictate the need for it. Given the differences in our willingness to lower our interest rates, it might make other competitors adjust their rates as well, which will be beneficial to the general public. Please consider the community and not the existing businesses. Our presence will not be detrimental or injurious, rather a better option. We implore you to allow the citizens and the economy to dictate our success or failure as a business. We're good people. We're not shrewd, or we're not trying to cut corners. It's just ignorance, and I admit that it's ignorance on our part, not knowing that we needed to get this special permit, since there is already an existing business in the other side of that building. I hope you would give us the chance. Thank you. God bless.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. You took right at 5 minutes. Are there any questions for Ms. Santa Ana at this point? All right. Hearing none. Mr. Smith, would you like to share with us?
Yes, I just want to try to outline the difference between the two different loan processes. We've got the flexible loan industry is the unsecured or secured open line of credit, much like personal line of credit. A flex loan allows the borrower to qualify for a credit limit and use the money as needed. Fixed loan works similar to a credit card. The fixed flexible loan terms allow borrowers to pay a minimum payment as low as 3%, the balance or the full balance, however they prefer. The payments are established based on the borrower's qualification and ability to pay. These organizations are governed by the Tennessee Department of Finance and licensed and lay out strict guidelines that monitor how our business will be operated. This flex loan establishment is a family-owned business, as she said, and is not affiliated with any franchise. This will allow them to create relationships with their repeat clients and program flexible interest rates and payment schedules, tailoring and matching the client as their credit health and financial endeavors improve. We believe the flexible loan concept is a more compassionate option for the consumers in need of emergency funds and will provide a competitive leverage that will eliminate the not so compassionate 30-day and 2-week loan establishments in the Whitehaven area. And these loans, most of these type loans establishments have been compared to us in this report, and none of them exist. And please allow established and proven economic principles to let the market make adjustments naturally. We believe that this will be a win-win situation for the consumer and the community. If our product is placed in front of any average consumer and the comparisons are made clear and simple, we believe that the flexibility and long-term implications will be superior and safer for the consumer in need of emergency funds. The staff report shows 6 businesses within 5-minute drive of the proposed site. The results of a more specific, broad Google Maps search covering the entire Whitehaven community for flex loan establishments resulted only one business. If you can, I tried to provide a map of that. I hope it was part of this presentation. If Mr. Skinner can put it up so y'all can see it. And what that map will show is that one flexible loan organization, basically their main line of business is the title loan, and the secondary consideration may be flexible loan option, but our first and only line of business is the flexible loan option. And recent reports from the Federal Reserve Board states that roughly 44% of Americans do not have cash to take care of an unexpected $400 emergency. The Whitehaven community has a total of 13,691 homes. If we spread this across the board, more than 6,000 Whitehaven families fall into this statistic. If we raise the bar to $1,000, I trust we will all agree that the percentile will increase. Our first and only line of business is the flexible loan. In comparison, we are not on the same planet as the 6 businesses referenced in the staff report, and the attached Google map, Google map shows that with the 19 flexible loan businesses referenced in the opposition letter, coupled with the financial stressful times and the simple fact that many of us, if not all of us, have been in situations that require some fast funding. The high demand for this type of business exists and has been with us for a long time. We're requesting approval of this application with which will provide a safer opportunity for the emergency fund problem that exists in Whitehaven, and provide a pushback on the predatory lending processes that are prominent within the Whitehaven community and that are shown on the map that Mr. Skinner has, and allow this responsible family-owned business to open and realize its dream. And we just want to provide a safer solution for the emergency fund problem. And if you can, please review the chart that we gave you that will give you a view of the comparison between the different loan establishment, the flex loan, the payday loan. We are not a payday loan. We are not a title loan. Thank you.
Okay, and that was actually the full 10 minutes. Are there any questions for Mr. Smith? Hearing none, we're going to move to opposition at this point. Is there any opposition on the phone with us?
Hello.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Could you state your name and address for the record?
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity. This is Dr. Yvonne Nelson. My address is 3519 McCorkle Road. I do live in Whitehaven, and my zip code is 38116 in Memphis. As I previously
let me swear you in real quick for the record, okay?
Okay.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, self you got?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I do have a full 10 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't want to take up 10 minutes. I have spoken to the parties in this application, and I have tried to explain to them that we are sympathetic to their financial problems, the issue with their son and being an accountant, needing an employment situation. But the information that they're sharing with you is heartfelt. And I know I've experienced failed businesses all my life, but I sincerely believe that this type of service in this location is an overkill. We need more educational opportunity for lower income people to understand the negative effects of fast money. It's stated that flex loans are the get-rich-quick scheme of the lending industry. And we know what types of neighborhoods they show up in. I have been fighting for Whitehaven since I moved here in 1993. And until I can't breathe, I'm going to continue to fight for Whitehaven. Now, I've heard several numbers, but according to the nationwide mortgage licensing system, who is responsible for Ms. Anna's license taking 2 years to be approved, they show that there are 19 flexible loan businesses, 5 check cashing locations, and 1 pawn shop just in 38116. They are north of us, south of us, east of us, and west of us. And I just believe that there is a zoning issue with this change being approved. Yes, it is businesses there, but this particular business, payday and title loan establishments, they are with special use approval only and only allowed in certain zoning districts. I understand the plight of the applicant, but it was very disappointing to hear more than once, if you already got so many of them, what is the problem with one more. The problem is that the first one should have never been approved. And it was. And it multiplied into where we are today. If we don't stop it somewhere, Whitehaven is going to be the next South Memphis. And I do not say that in any disrespect to South Memphis, North Memphis, or any other Memphis area, but I didn't hear Whitehaven addresses. My passion for Whitehaven started in 1993 when I purchased my first home as a young woman out here. I also have children, 2 of them, and I love Whitehaven. And I just want everyone listening to know I do sympathize with the applicant, but the applicant is only looking out for self. Lowering interest rates, oh, that's great. That's a great idea, but it's not going to make me lower mine. It's not going to make any other business lower theirs. They're still going to continue to operate because it is a free system, and they can do this. If it were left up to me, there would be no such thing as any of these payday, flex, or title loans. They are not good business. They're fast money, and they're not designed to help people. So many people have fallen into bankruptcy and had other negative experiences from taking this type of loan. I strictly oppose this at this location. I do. That's my final thought.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Is there anyone else on the line for opposition? Or I'm sorry, do we have any questions for Dr. Nelson? Hearing none, do we have any other opposition today?
No.
Okay. All right, so we're going to move back to the applicant for, I believe it's 2 minutes of rebuttal. So, okay. And then I know, Mr. Smith, you mentioned having somebody else talk too, so they could also talk during this 2 minutes.
Okay. To the opposition, I just want to make clear that this business is totally different from the payday loan. Payday loan has a maximum 30-day processing time that giving you the money to having to pay it back. That provides additional stress on the already stressed borrower. This is the flexible loan is, like I said, it's like a open-end loan. It allows the long-term payment options, and allow with the same benefits as the fast processing, the quick funding, and it's just a need in the area in the world today, because so many people just don't have additional funds for emergencies. And the terms are, like I said, are different than the payday loan and cash paycheck loans. They are very short term and provide additional stress on the already stressed financial situation for the lender. And the flexible loan, the Santanas are determined to provide long-term services for their client and repeat services. And that's the difference between us and all of the establishments that were shown on the report. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Sorry. I have a question for the applicant. I know that someone's credit is going to determine what the interest rate is, but what are your ranges of what interest rates you think would be charged?
The law dictates 24% per annum, and I can put this in writing. We are willing to lower it down. We can even give discounts. You know, us being a local or owned and not a franchise, we can make decisions. We can build a relationship. And I don't know if Mr. Smith was able to convey exactly, you know, by example, the difference between a payday and a flex loan and why it is, you know, beneficial is because let's just say somebody owes or borrows $500 from payday. They're supposed to make a payment of $75 every payday. So usually it's bi-weekly, so every week they need to pay $75 on top of the $500, which means come payday, if they cannot pay the whole $500, they're going to pay another $75, which in effect for that whole month, they will be paying $150 on interest alone because they cannot pay the $500. With the flex loan, if you borrow the $500, for the whole month, not the whole, not the 2 weeks, you'll only be paying $115 as against $150. Now, that also gives you the opportunity to lower down your original loan, the $500, because the law mandates that they pay at least 3% of the original loan amount. And we have another, another resident or business owner from the area who's in the list to speak. Can he still do that?
Well, we're out of time for more applicants to speak unless the board wishes to hear further testimony. Does anybody on the board want to hear from anyone else? Hearing none, so I think we're done with that. You can answer our questions though. Are there any other questions for the applicant? All right, I don't hear any. So with that, I assume the board is ready to discuss this case. Is there anybody on the board willing to give a motion to approve BOA 21-0009 as conditioned by staff?
John Jackson, so moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Vice Chair, second.
Okay. All right, thank you. Is there any discussion on this case? Well, I'll go. I'm conflicted.
Oh, okay.
Oh, if you want to, you can go first if you'd like.
What I'm hearing, and this is just what I'm hearing, and I'm hearing an argument very similar to what we used to hear once they said no longer have an hourly rate hotels. They now have to, not be hourly, but they cater to the same demographic. I don't see where the demographic that they're catering to is different. I think it's just nomenclature. The only difference is we spread this out over multiple months versus payday loan. And there is a slight hair discrepancy, just like there's a slight hair discrepancy between doing hourly and paying the same sum over 24 hours. But it's the same clientele. And it's the same detriment to a neighborhood. And I'm putting this type of business into that category. That's just my thoughts.
Very good. Yeah, I'm somewhat conflicted. I mean, I understand the need for fast cash, but it also seems like the interest rate is even lower than the payday is just exorbitant to me on these kind of businesses. And there's debate that can go either way on whether or not, hey, the ability to get fast cash could really be helpful to people, but then we know a lot of people that lose a lot of money by doing these loans, which is why we put things in our zoning of what needs to be so far from residential and things like that. Given that it's not, I don't know that I need to make my decision based on what I think is good for the community on this particular business. I think that I can't grant a variance based on what I'm supposed to grant variances on for this case, so I can kind of punt on my social feelings on the business and say, you know what, I just don't think with where it's located, it should be allowed by the code. So I didn't know if y'all had any thoughts on that.
This is Vice Chair. I agree with both Mr. Sherman and Ms. Gerlach. And I'm with you. That's why I asked the question early on the hardship. I really don't feel like they met the need, to me, of the hardship of the need of the business. I am very sympathetic with, their desires and, of course, their financial, wanting to provide financial stability. But again, I just don't feel the way it's been presented in the evidence that's before us that they've created a hardship for me to allow for the variance for this. So that's just my thought on that.
Okay. Any other thoughts before we vote? All right. Hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. Oh, go ahead. Did somebody speak or? All right, well, I assume you're ready to vote. Mr. Whitehead, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Doss?
No.
Mr. Melandri?
No.
Ms. Gerlach?
No.
Ms. Baker?
No.
Mr. Jackson?
No.
Vice Chair Savage Jones?
No, I find that the standards of the UDCC of 9.22.6 are not being met, and this property will be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
Mr. Claybrook?
No.
And Mr. Chairman?
No.
8 nays.
All right, the case is declined. I wish the applicant best of luck. I mean, I think you've gone through the process of getting a license. You just can't do it there. Mr. Whitehead, do we want to go try to go back to our tabled case to see if we have any resolution there?
Sure. Mr. Penzis, do you mind checking in or unmuting Mr. Parinello?
Hold on. Hello?
Mr. Parinello. Gotcha.
Yes. I have Scott Cresswell on the line too, who is the head of our construction, to address the issues of the landscaping.
Okay, Mr. Cresswell, will you give your name and address for the record for us?
Sure, Scott Cresswell, 1915 Factors Walk, Ionia, New York, 14475.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Share with us if you can.
Well, I guess I'm coming in a little late to the call. You know, we received some advance paperwork that basically said things were going to be, I don't want to, sound disrespectful, but we thought this was a rubber stamp and we were all set, and we had to remove some fencing that's currently on the property that's been there for a long time, and a couple of other things, but we were going to be pretty much all set. And now Matt's telling me there's an issue with the parking, which I guess I'm not sure what the issue is, because, for us as a storage facility, we're not even going to be using the parking.
Yeah, okay. Let me bring you up to speed then quickly on our discussions we had as it came before the board. You're right. You're not really using the parking. There's this huge slab of concrete or pavement that's there, and the Memphis 3.0 plan has basically we have zoning on what it's supposed to look like when you have parking like that, which y'all have an excess of parking. And so this is kind of, you'll probably be a place there for a while. So from the board's perspective, this is a bite of the apple to finally get something done about something that kind of is like an empty eyesore parking lot right now. So what has been suggested is that we bring it up to the current landscaping standards, which with a large parking lot, that would mean adding islands and all sorts of stuff. Every 40 spaces needs an island, all this stuff. Now, y'all don't really need islands or parking. So an alternative to that is to get rid of some of the parking and turn it into, to grass and landscaping. And so that's what we're discussing right now.
Okay, well, let me tell you what our master plan is for the site, and maybe will be helpful for you.
Okay.
So, our plan is we bought the property. It was vacant. We're trying to be good to the community and spend a substantial amount of money to revitalize broken down malls all over the country, not just in your city, and put them back into use and make good use of them. In this space in particular, we realize we have excess land, and our plan is to not just sit with that land being empty, but to find other users to use some of that land. And for example, the corner of that, our corner by the front corner of the main road, Winchester Road, we're in the middle of, and Matt can tell you the specifics, but we're in the middle of negotiating with someone who wants to buy that corner acre from us and develop it. And so, our plan is to continue to try and move that land to something that'll be good for the community and good for the town and city and everyone, that'll generate jobs and taxes and such. And the way that we're trying to do that is we're gonna get our building up and running and make it look nice, and then we're gonna try and over time subdivide that out into usable lots as people want to buy that. Maybe a hotel, could be a restaurant, could be another small retail center. So to spend money on bringing a parking lot up to code that wasn't up to code to begin with, seems a little foolish when then we may just ultimately be ripping it right back out.
Gotcha.
Candidly, and I said this to someone that's on the zoning committee when we had a call with them a few weeks ago. We bought this, and now I feel like we're the ones being punished because other people did things to the property inappropriately, didn't get site approval for things and didn't get things. And now all of a sudden we buy a piece of property and we're finding out that, we got to rectify 20 years of, we'll call it misuse of the property. Just doesn't really seem fair to us that we have to do that at a minute's notice, and and we can't get our business going.
Okay. Now I don't know about when this, zoning changes over time, and so when a lot of times when people come in for a variance to do something that's not allowed in that area, this is when we make it right for what's on now. So that'd be my answer to that.
And I understand, and we want to make it right, but
sure.
we need time to do that. And
right. So let me ask you this: how, I wouldn't expect you to say, hey, in 3 months we're going to have a hotel there. We don't know that. What, in your idea, how long is this development of that area going to take? Is it 2 years, 4 years? I mean, just roughly. I'm just curious.
I would say it's going to take 3 to 5 years, and And along the way, to your point, if in fact we can't find somebody, and you're right, we're not going to let the parking lot deteriorate and become an eyesore, then we're either going to have to pave it, at which time I'd be glad to spend the money on the islands, or we'd say, look, no one's ever going to take this, and why do we want to pave it? It's going to be cheaper to turn it into grass, then we'll turn it back into green space. But, I don't want to do that without giving it a college try. And
that makes total sense.
And as you know, those things take a long time. So, I mean, I most, and I'd have to check with my other partners, but, my feeling would be, if you said to us, look, we have to be to code within 3 to 5 years, that I can live with. If you're telling me I got to be within code today, that's a problem.
Right. No, that makes sense. Okay. That is very helpful. So I guess, Mr. White, I can't remember. I guess I can just go ahead and ask the board. We were sort of in discussion. We went back to hear from the applicant, but I'd want to know what the board's feelings was on that, are, I guess, on moving, where we want that up to code in X. And maybe I would suggest it needs to be up to code in 4 years. Is the best way to accomplish that, Josh, is just to put that, or would we sunset the approval in 4 years where they have to come back and show they're up to code? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, either approach would achieve the same thing, right? If you put it as a condition, it has to be done in 4 years, and it's not, and the owner, pushes back, the owner, whoever it is at that time, then they would have to file a correspondence case and go back to the board to address that condition. So it's, it will get you to the same place, whether you sunset it or say it has to be done.
But if we sunset it, they have to come in.
Exactly. That is the difference.
Great. Okay. Then what I would suggest would be a friendly amendment to our condition about bringing the parking lot up to UDC landscaping standards, that they must do so within 4 years. And is there any discussion on that?
Chairman, this is Carson. Does that
bringing
it up to code, does that also include, let's say, like he said, we decide we can't find a user for it, and I'm just putting my brain or my hat on that I use on my day-to-day job. If they can't find a hotel or a strip center or anything like that, are we requiring them to do the islands with that code, or can they just say, hey, let's make it a green space and put grass down?
I believe that the grass would be allowable under the code. The islands are required when you have parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Perfect. That's all I need to know.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, John Jackson.
Yeah, Mr. Jackson.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I don't know if I necessarily agree with sunsetting the requirement relative to what we're looking for based on the UDC. The gentleman's argument about other people's mistakes, I don't think is real relevant to this situation. This particular mall was developed, over 20 years ago. At the time, it was developed to what the code was. Since that time, it has not existed as a mall. Codes have changed. It's no different in requiring a new owner of a property to bring a building up to code if he purchased a building. He would have to bring that building up to code in order to get an occupancy permit, irregardless to what the code was 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 100 years ago. That has no bearing on what the requirements are of today. He has the option to either put the islands in as the code is now, or he can remove that parking and turn it to green space. By removing that parking and turn it to green space, it really has no detrimental impact on his ability to market the property. In fact, from a visual enhancement perspective, it would probably make it look better for it just to be grass. I don't know if we should sunset that for that reason. Now, we want to give them more than 8 months, a year maybe to do it. I'm just totally not agreeable to that. That's my
can
opinion.
I just address that for a second, sir? So, and
yes.
let me address it. So let me address it from 2 points of view. To put that parking lot, which is massive, back into grass, okay, I'm guessing that is somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000. That candidly, I don't have right now. So that would be my point number one. And I realize that maybe isn't the town's problem. But my second point to this is, the property was a mall, right? And when I drive around the mall, at some point in the last few years, this building, my understanding is it traded the whole entire parcel to a church. And so I would ask the board then, if I have to put all of this infrastructure in around my parking lot, why hasn't somebody made the church do the same thing around the entire rest of the building? I only own one little corner. Why isn't the rest of the building being brought up to code? So again, I respectfully say I feel like there's 2 sets of standards here.
Mr. Whitehead, correct me if I'm wrong, the use that's there is allowed, and so it's just been legal non-conforming, correct? And now this is going to be, because of the variance, that's why this is being addressed here. Is that right?
That's right. A place of worship is permitted in all of our zoning districts, so that's why nothing was triggered when that happened.
Right. So, but my point is, so I'm going to have one corner of a building where you're going to have one little spot on this entire parcel that, let's call it, is to code, and then the rest of the place isn't to code, and that's acceptable. That just doesn't seem fair.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Ms. Baker.
Yes. I just want to throw out another option that I think applicants have. If he did not want to bring the property that he has there up to code, what I would suggest he do is file a rezoning and a subdivision. And then he could just file a development application to redevelop that property and a smaller portion of the parking lot, and he wouldn't have to change the whole parking lot. I mean, that is just another option that he would have.
You're saying you would make the structure and a small parking lot with it be a separate parcel, is what you're saying?
Well, he would file a subdivision and create lots, and then sell his lot to this person that he thinks may want to have a restaurant there. He could develop his lot, and as each lot develops, UDC requirements would apply, just like they do to anybody who comes in and redevelops a piece of property. So I'm just throwing that out as an option.
Okay, let's explore that a little bit, Mary. So let's say I'm Mr. Developer. I go ahead, we go forward with some sort of, hey, you got to have this rectified in X amount of time. During that time, one option would be to subdivide it so he can make his parcel that, and the rest of it would be under a different subdivision.
Yeah,
but that would still maybe have to get sold.
That he thinks would be these out parcels.
Out parcels.
With the property that they would have for their parking lot. I assume if he's thinking about that, he's got an idea in his mind about how he would parcel it out. And because he would have to do that anyway at that time. And he would just be doing it a little bit beforehand so that he wouldn't have to, deal with the whole parking lot now. I'm not saying he has to do that. All I'm saying is that it's just another option that he has if he doesn't want to bring this up to code as he implements this variance if it got approved. And I just want to say one other thing on this, and I know we're talking about Sunset, but, you know, without that, a variance is forever. We will never see this piece of property again, you know, and so it'll just be like it is unless somebody decides to do something different, but we will have nothing to say about it because it'll never come back up for anything new unless he brings it up. No amount of neighborhood planning, comprehensive rezoning, you know, anything that we might try to do as a community to upgrade this area, none of it could apply to this because the variance runs with the land. It's more like a contract than zoning. Anyway, that's all.
Okay.
And I agree with exactly what you said is a valid option. The only reason I didn't want to subdivide it into separate parcels now is because I don't ultimately know if somebody's going to want a half an acre or 3 acres. So I was trying to hold off on subdividing it until such time as, again, we knew what the user would want, and then we'd only be spending money and doing that once, not, you know, numerous times.
Gotcha.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, I would just make one more comment.
Yes, sir.
It takes help. In Memphis, in our ordinance, you can move lot lines by deed. You don't have to refile the subdivision. So you have a lot of flexibility once you create the lots. That might help.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
This is Brett Davis with the Division of Planning and Development. One comment I have regarding the subdivision question is that this site is in a shopping center district, which is that CM2 conditional zoning district that we've inherited from the past. So we usually create lots by recording a final plan. When a site is coming in for development, we make sure that it meets the general plan and meets the district standards. And by recording the final plan, the lot's created rather than the traditional subdivision approach. So the whole mall was recorded under a single final plan. This parcel, the 17-acre Sears site, was split off from that final plan at some point, but never actually had its own, revised final plan recorded. So we're asking them to come back and record, a final plan 3A to show this specific parcel as its own final plan rather than part of the greater mall site. And that potentially could be recorded from a reduced size of, less than 17 acres. But it wouldn't change, obviously, what's there or the land outside of that final plan. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion with the applicant before we go into board-only discussion? All right, hearing none, we're going to move back into board discussion only. So are there any other comments? So right now, Mr. Jackson disagreed, but, well, at least there still was the question of making the condition that we added before they had 48 months to have it up to code. Does anybody else have comments on that in order to kind of figure out what that condition is going to look like?
Mr. Chairman, this is Gopi. I have a question to staff on the avenue that Mary had suggested.
Sure.
So if the applicant were to file a subdivision, then they would be required to make the improvements along Winchester and Ridgeway to do the streetscape to bring that up to code. Is that
possibly? Again, subdivision is not the traditional application type for this land because it's in this quote unquote shopping center SC1 general plan district. When the final plan, the existing final plan for the whole mall was recorded, that dealt with at that time the streetscaping, the width of the landscape strip, trees. So it's all sort of, that work has been done. Obviously, there aren't really any trees left along the streets for the most part. Staff was planning to review for street trees during that final plan review. But if it did come back before a board somehow, before the land use control board, then that board would be able to condition it potentially in addition.
Okay, thank you.
Other thoughts on this condition?
Mr. Chairman, John Jackson.
Yes, sir.
I think the time of 4 years is just too long.
Would you be okay with 3 years?
No, sir. I really just don't think it should be. I really don't think we should go over 2 years on this. I just, as Ms. Baker brought up, we will not get an opportunity to bring this property up to code relative to what the UDC is, unless it sells again, somebody comes for another variance, or it's totally redeveloped. And I don't think that this opportunity should be missed. And again, it's no different than when you go buy something. There are certain codes and renovations that you have to make in whatever city you're in. And it is not based on what the previous code is or its condition. Period.
I guess my counterpoint to that is I agree that when you have a structure, and you know more about this than I do with just what you do, those come up to code, but something that you're not going to use and probably going to sell for other development seems like I would hate to spend money just to have to redo something. And you know more about, especially, I mean, this is in your wheelhouse of outdoor landscaping kind of stuff, and it is not in mine at all. But that's kind of my thought is I'd hate to start doing stuff that just is going to get redone in the next 2.5 years, as opposed to a building that you bring to code that is what you're using and what the public is using for your business. So that was my thought process on it.
Yes, sir. I understand.
Yeah. All right, so I'm still sticking with 3. I think John would maybe go with 2. Are there any other comments on that?
This is Vice Chair. I guess I'm going to go in the middle and say 2.5. But
you're saying 30 months.
I'm just in agreement on both ends, but I do agree with Mr. Jackson that, I mean, it's kind of buyer beware. We spend, we're sophisticated people, being that this has been there a while and knowing that they're going to, upgrade that's wonderful, that's great. But at the same time, we are enforcing the code. And I think, either we get up to code, and allow them time. We're doing that graces. But at the same time, we're forcing all of our other applicants and being fair with the code. You should bring it up to code. That should have been in the frame of mind anyway, because that's why they applied here. So I'm going to go in the middle. I know it's going to be various things, but I'm in the middle. I could go either way, but definitely 4 years is too long. That's just my opinion.
Mr. Jackson, I'll go in the middle if you will. But you can stick to your guns too, but I'd say 30 months.
30 months, I'll go with that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Is there any other objection or thought from the board on 30 months? Okay, hearing none. Is there any discussion on the greater case as was brought before us? We've mainly just talked about this particular condition, but that may be our only sticking point we had. All right, hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. Mr. Whitehead, do you want to repeat what you think our condition is just to make sure we're in agreement?
Sure. And just for the record, we're still on the motion made by Scurlock and seconded by Savage Towns with the friendly amendment, a new condition number 6 that reads, the parking lot and streetscape shall be brought to code within 3 years, period.
30 months.
Oh, I'm sorry. 30 months.
Okay. Will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Scurlock.
Yes.
Ms. Baker.
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Towns.
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDCC of 9.22.6 are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
Mr. Claybrook.
Yes.
Ms. Doss.
Yes.
Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Moazri.
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
8 ayes.
All right. The case has been approved. Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Whitehead, will you call our next case?
Our next case is also our final case. That's agenda item 7, docket BOA 210010, located at 770 Eccles. The applicant is Laksh Nadrajog, and the representative is Tim McCaskill. The use district is the R6 single-family district, and the request is a variance from 361A to allow a lot width reduction for 2 lots and a lot size reduction for 1 lot.
Okay, very good. I'll defer real quick to Ms. Baker. Were you wanting to hear this case, or did you have a question about this case?
I think I really just want to make a statement about this case.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry to be causing so much trouble.
We'll forgive you just this once, Mary.
I don't think this is an appropriate application for Board of Adjustment. I've said this before. I'm not opposed to having 2 homes constructed there, but I just don't think this application should be approved by the Board of Adjustment. It should be a rezoning or a plan development. Both of these require action by the Land Use Control Board and approval by the Memphis City Council. Now, when this has come up in the past, I said, well, I made the point about it, but I'm going to vote for it this time, I said, because Tim had filed his application and gotten so far and everything, but I'm going to vote against it this time because when I read our minutes, it doesn't show, that you had any reservations. It just shows you either voted for it or you don't. And so I'm just going to vote against this because I don't agree with the process, and maybe we can have a discussion about that sometime, and I'm not really here trying to change everybody's mind or anything like that, but I'm just telling you I'm going to vote against it, and that's the reason. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other comments of the board or discussion? Does anybody want to hear the actual case? Hearing none, I assume y'all are ready. Did I hear somebody? No, I assume you're ready to vote. So is there a motion to approve BOA 21-10 as conditioned by the staff?
So moved.
Jackson.
Is there a second?
Vice Chair
Second, Dahl.
Okay, we got 2 seconds. Is there any discussion at this time? Hearing none, I'll say this: I'm not disagreeing with Mary. I think that I'm trusting the staff. This was properly brought to us on this. I'm going to vote in favor. But if there's no other, are there any other comments? Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. Mr. Whitehead, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Claybrook,
Yes.
Mr. Malazri,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Ms. Baker,
No.
Ms. Doss,
Yes.
Ms. Vice Chair Savage Towns.
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDCC of 9.22.6 are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
Ms. Scarlock,
Yes.
and Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
That's 7 ayes and 1 nay.
All right, very good. Thank you. This case has been approved. And Mr. Whitehead, do we have any further announcements?
No, sir.
All right, with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much for our good discussion today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.